So tonight, he has given me the opportunity to speak to you for just a few minutes about the idea of knowledge of God or intimacy with God. And before we get started, we didn't get to play a game earlier, and I know how much y'all love the game. So I actually have a little game for us to play. And the only person excited is Antonio and Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith was excited. So I'm excited about that. But these are New Testament Bible trivia questions. Okay? This should be softball questions for all you Bible scholars in here. But I would prefer if you would at least raise your hand, okay, before I, give you the answer. Don't just shout it out. So, here's the first question. In what city was Jesus born? Anybody? Wow. Oh, wait, Aaron. Bethlehem was correct. Wow, that was an easy one. Way to go, Aaron. Good job. All right. Here's one a little harder here. How many books are in the New Testament? Ooh. Oh, Mackenzie. Oh, okay, never mind. Anybody? Oh, Grace, go ahead. 27 is correct. Hey, way to go, Grace. Wow. I am super pumped that you got that right. How many people did Jesus feed with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? Well, hey, you're not supposed to say it. You're supposed to raise your hand. Amy, you raise your hand. Thank you. Aaron, please refrain from answering the questions. Oh, let's see what else we got right here. Oh, some of these get a little harder. Oh. What is the shortest book in the New Testament? Ooh. 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 Who wants to do it? Zach, did you do it?
Jude.
It is not Jude. It's close to Jude.
Payne Frizzell knows the answer.
Payne Frizzell.
Payne Frizzell does not know it.
Okay, he doesn't know it. Joel, did you know it? Okay, I thought you had your hand up. Sorry. Anyway, what else? Anybody? It's at the back. Huh? One of the Johns is correct. That's not 1 John. 2 John. Wow. Keep going. We'll get there eventually. Guaranteed. 2 John is the shortest one. A couple more, and then we'll get started right here. Let's see if I can find some real hard ones here before we get in here. What? Wow, these are hard enough according to the guy in the front row. Okay, I didn't know. Sorry. My bad. What does Simon Peter do for a living before he becomes an apostle? Fisherman. Hey, there we go. Way to go. You reeled that one in pretty good, didn't you? Oh, see, that was a pun. 3 people picked up on it. Carrie Jones probably did. She loves good puns. But that was a pretty good pun. A few of you picked up on it. It's all good. Let's see here. Oh, some of these are pretty tough. Which gospel is written by a doctor? Which one? Who was it? Luke! That is right. Luke was actually a doctor. Grace is a genius. She's getting a little help from the back row, I think. Just maybe a little bit. I don't know, but it's possible she's getting just a touch of help from the back row. That's fine. Okay, one more and we're going to call it a night. All right. Let's see here. I'm trying to find one that nobody will know. Well, let's see here. What does Paul say may abound more and more in knowledge and in all judgment? What does Paul say may abound more and more in knowledge and in all judgment? My wife knows it. She's welcome to say it. Love may abound more and more in knowledge and in all judgment. Well, I would say that based on this little test that I've just given y'all, that y'all have got a pretty good knowledge of God, right? Y'all got a pretty good knowledge of God. Some of you do. Some of them are still working on it. That's fine. It's no big deal. We'll get there. But what if I told you that all of that knowledge of God is no good unless you actually do something with it and perform that and create an actual relationship with God and with Jesus Christ? That if you spent all your life learning and gaining all this great knowledge, but you never actually translated that into actually following and having an intimate relationship with Jesus, then it would pretty much be meaningless to you. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to see an example in Luke of somebody that had an extreme amount of knowledge about God, but when faced with a test to actually put that knowledge into work, he failed. And somebody else who had zero knowledge of God, when put in that test, succeeded. So we're going to get over to Luke in just a minute, but before we get there, does anybody have the definition of knowledge or intimacy? Or intimate? Does anybody know what that means? Those two words mean? Anybody? Merriam-Webster knows what they mean because I have it on my sheet. What is the difference between knowledge and intimacy? Anybody? Jordan Smith, he knew it. He was looking at the sheet, but he didn't want to give the answer. It's fine. Okay. Well, Merriam-Webster, our famous dictionary, defines the two this way. He defines knowledge as the fact or condition of knowing something with familiarity gained through experience or association. So knowing something through association, through learning, through study. The definition of intimacy is marked by a warm friendship developed through a long association, or marked by a very personal or private relationship. So knowledge and intimacy, they go in two hands. I've got a little example for us. We're going to show in just a second, but I'm going to take you back just a little bit to when I was just a wee young lad. I grew up as a super fan of Tennessee football. Tennessee football was it for me. I mean, I had nothing else going in my life but Tennessee football as a kid. Nothing. I mean, that's all I had. And from the time I was in the second grade, all the way up till the end of my fourth grade year, every single day to school, I wore a Tennessee t-shirt. Every day. No day missed. No special days, no anything else. And 90% of the time it was an orange shirt. In fact, when I got to the end of my fourth grade year, for some reason I woke up one morning and put on a blue shirt. And when I went to school, the teacher called my mom and said, "What's wrong with John? He's wearing a blue shirt today, and he hasn't worn a blue shirt in like 3 years." And she said, "Well, I don't know, he just put it on this morning." I don't know why I put it on that morning. You know, kids are dumb. So, I mean, you just pick up and look in the closet. But about the time I was getting about to the middle school, this young man came to play for Tennessee. And I've got a picture of him. Let's see if anybody knows who this guy is that came to play for Tennessee. Oh, anybody know who that is? Who is that? No, it's not Eli Manning. Jeez, terrible. It's Peyton Manning. Okay. And Peyton Manning became it for me. All right. Peyton Manning was the dude that I studied all the way through. I studied him all the way through college. I watched every game he played. I studied everything he did. I knew everything there was to know about Peyton Manning. He got drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. I studied the Colts. He got traded to the Broncos. I became the Bronco fan. All right. I was so enamored with everything that Peyton Manning did, and I knew everything there was to know about Peyton Manning. I knew his stats. I knew how good he was. I knew everything there was to know about him. But guess what? If Peyton Manning walked through that door right there, knowing all that about him and having all that knowledge of him would not give me the opportunity to go actually speak to Peyton Manning, because he wouldn't know who I was. And just because I've spent all this time studying him and learning about him and dictating all of these things about him, just because I've done all that, doesn't mean that he's going to know who I am when he walks that door, because I don't have that relationship with him. And that's where we're at tonight. We can spend all of our time studying the Bible, studying everything there is to know about it, and working on it and doing everything there is that it calls us. But if we're not actually applying that to an actual relationship with Jesus on a daily basis, then we're never actually going to see or exceed or accept the true path that God has laid out for us. So tonight we're looking at Luke 7, 36 through 50. This story, I'll set it up a little bit and I'll explain a little more as we get into it. But this story is about Simon the Pharisee, and he is like super Bible man. All right, he knows everything. And Jesus has came into his town to preach a sermon. And after it's over with, Simon, being as knowledgeable as he is, has the opportunity to have Jesus over to his house. Okay, this would be like if you had the opportunity to have Brother Clay over to your house after he preached, or have Ryan over to your house after he preached. It's a big deal. He was the chosen one to have Jesus actually come and sit with him and eat a meal with him. So in that day, he would become now the big dog, okay, because he's actually got the rabbi, the man coming to his house to speak with him, and to eat with him. But what we see is that Simon knows who he is, but once he gets there, he totally misses the fact that he's got Jesus sitting at the table and basically just shuns him. And then we see somebody else come into the scene that does the exact opposite thing of what Simon does. So we'll pick up reading in verse 36, and it's going to be on the screens. And if you turn your sheet over, if you're holding a sheet, it's on the back of your sheet too. So we've got so many options for you to read it that there's no reason you shouldn't be able to read it. So it says in 36, then one of the Pharisees invited him to eat with him. He entered the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. And a woman in town who was a sinner found out that Jesus was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house. She brought an alabaster jar of fragrant oil and stood behind him at his feet, weeping, and began to wash his feet with her tears. She wiped his feet with the hair of her head, kissing them and anointing them with the fragrant oil. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him. She is a sinner. Jesus replied to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. Teacher, he said, say it. A creditor had 2 debtors. One owed him 500 denarii and the other owed 50. Since they could not pay it back, he graciously forgave them both. So which one of them will love him more? Simon answered, I suppose the one who forgave more. You have judged correctly, he told him. Turning to the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she, with her tears, washed my feet and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but she hasn't stopped kissing my feet since I came in. You didn't anoint my head with olive oil, but she has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven. That's why she loved much. But the one who's forgiven little loves little. Then he said to her, your sins are forgiven. Those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, who is this man who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. We're going to see 3 things out of this passage. The first thing we're going to see is that knowledge in your head cannot overcome the truth in your heart. Knowledge in your head cannot overcome the truth in your heart. So Simon, and I'll ask this too, how many of you have ever participated in Bible drill? Oh, got a few? Yeah, got a few probably still participating in it. All right, how many of you have ever been to vacation Bible school where they taught you a bunch of stuff, right? Okay, good. We've all been there, right? Okay, well, Simon was the super Bible drill man. All right, by the time Simon was 12 years old, he had memorized the first 5 books of the Bible, word for word. Word for word. By the time he was 16, he had memorized the entire Old Testament. I mean, we're talking Judges, Leviticus, the stuff that I can't even pronounce today. He has memorized it. He could start from Genesis and go all the way to Malachi and never miss a word. He knows it all. He studied over 300 prophecies from the Old Testament about the coming of the Messiah. He had more knowledge of the coming Messiah than probably anybody in the entire area that he lived in. He had it all. He knew everything. He knew everything there was to do about it. But now he's actually got the Messiah in his house. The guy that he's spent all this time learning about, it's all this time getting and gaining knowledge about. And he's got him right here in his house. And as custom would have it back then, what you should do when someone of that stature came in is you should at least wash their feet. Now, if it's somebody that was a little bit lower class than you, you would give them water to wash their feet. He does nothing for him. You would anoint them with oil when they came into your house. You would put it either on their forehead or on their cheek. He does nothing. He gives him nothing. And the thing is, he knows he should do that. He knows because he has studied and he understands that he should do that. In fact, it says, if you really get into the context of this, that Simon basically shunned Jesus to the point of sticking him in the corner and didn't even acknowledge his presence at his meal. And he did that because he was so enamored with himself and so enamored with the knowledge that he had gained of Jesus that he didn't feel that he had to do anything. He felt that that knowledge was enough. That knowledge of Jesus and of the Word was enough that he missed the boat so badly and missed it so completely. The woman we see, and I asked Ryan if it was okay for me to say this, she was a prostitute. Okay, now I don't know if that was acceptable to say in here, but I'm sure all y'all probably know what that means. So anyway, She was a prostitute. That was how she made her living. And she would not have been invited to this under any circumstances. The Bible tells us, if we really read into it, that most likely she was just passing by and heard Jesus giving a sermon. She heard what he was saying. And she had no idea anything. She had not read the Bible. She had not studied the Bible. She didn't know anything about it. But the words of Jesus pierced her heart so much that she was not going to stop until she actually went to be with him. To where she actually went to anoint him and to fall at his feet for what he had done for them, what he was saying to them. And you see that the people that are in the crowd are mocking her, and they're laughing at her, and they're upset that she would even come. And they're upset with Jesus because he's actually letting her do these things. But what we see is her truth was in her heart. Her truth was where it mattered. Her truth was the fact that it didn't matter if she knew everything there was to know about God. The only thing that mattered to her was the fact that she was hearing from somebody who was telling her that no matter how terrible she had lived her life, and no matter how many sins she'd committed, no matter how many ways she'd went about not following what she was supposed to do, that all she had to do was come to his feet, and that all that would be forgotten. All that would be in the past. And that's what she does. And that's what Jesus is trying to get a point across to Simon, is when he's confronting Simon about it, he's saying, look, she has done what you wouldn't do, and you know to do it. And she doesn't, but she's still doing it. So who loves me more? Who actually wants to be with me more? Who actually wants to have an intimate relationship with me more? You? Just because you know everything? Or her because she's actually pouring herself out to me? So we see that knowledge in your head cannot overcome truth in your heart. But we also see that developing intimacy with God takes time. It takes time. Now, how many people in here were born on February 16th, 2001, or after? I mean, how many people in here? How many people were born before February 16th, 2001? Let me say that. Okay, 5, all the adults, right? All of you older people, like me. Even Ashley was born before that. I didn't realize she was that old. That's fine. But all you kids weren't even born at that time, right? Okay. That was the night I took my wife on our very first date. February 16th, 2001. It's true. She went on a date with me. It was a couple's date. It was a double date, It wasn't just me and her. And then, fast forward to 2 weeks to March the 3rd of that same year, and we became an exclusive couple. We were exclusive. Now, we didn't have any social media, so nobody knew about it, okay? But we were exclusive. Fast forward a couple of years, we got married. August 16, 2003. And this year we'll celebrate 16 years married. Now, if you count that up, because I did it, I didn't count with my fingers, but I counted this up. We've been together for 6,690 days. 6,690 days we've been together. And I would guess, if I had to make a good stab at this, in those 6,690 days, there has been less than 5 days that I have not had some type of communication with her. Now, I may not have seen her every day, but I've talked to her, I've texted her. In the old days, I emailed her, But we've had some time. Oh, I called her on the telephone, She would read the dictionary to me because she didn't want to go off the phone because we were so happy with each other, It was 2 in the morning. We've been talking for 4 hours. I've got nothing left to say. Well, let me get out the dictionary. What about this word? You ever heard of that? No, I haven't. I'm going to bed now. Thank you, though. I'll talk to you tomorrow. That's a true story, by the way. She's laughing because she knows it's true. That's when you know you're really in love. When you don't want to get off the phone with somebody, that you read the dictionary to them on the phone at 2 in the morning. But it's true. She did that. But you did it. You know you did it. It's fine. But the point is, less than 5 times in those 6,690 days have we not had some type of communication. So you'd say I've got a pretty good knowledge of her, right? I know about everything there is to know, right? But guess what? If I stopped talking to her today and went up 2 months, 3 months, a year, you think our relationship's going to be as good as it is right now? It's not. Just because I've spent that many days with her, if I don't continually do it and continually push forward and continually work on that relationship every single day, then that relationship will fade. It'll fade away. It'll go away. And it'll come to a point where I don't really know her as well as I think I know her. Now I know a lot of her past, and I know a lot about what she's got, what we've went through. I know a lot about all the ups and downs and the, struggles and victories and everything else. But we've been past, but I don't know anything about what we've got going forward, right? I won't see anything about the knowledge or the direction of our life going forward. So just because I've got all that knowledge doesn't mean that I can just give up and quit because I've gained it all. And it's the same way with our relationship with God. Now, you may be somebody that's a super saint. You may have been saved since you were 7 years old. You may have been studying every word of the Bible. You may have done all that. You may be living it like you're supposed to live it. But the minute you start slowing down, or the minute you feel like you've arrived, or that you've got to the point where you know everything there is to know, or that you've achieved everything there is to achieve, or that you're on the right path, so you're in cruise control, and God's over here, and you're like, hey, God, you know what? You told me everything I need to know. I'm in good shape. I'm going to follow you now, and I'm just going to cut it and cruise, and I'm good. The day you do that and stop developing that relationship is the day that you will never get any further on the path that you're going. If you want to have true intimacy with God, it takes daily interaction with God. It doesn't matter if it's reading one scripture out of the Bible. It doesn't matter if it's spending 3 minutes reading one page in a Bible study book. It doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds praying, God, I don't know what I'm going to do today, but just guide what I'm doing. It's something, though, every single day. Now, I hope you're doing more than that. I hope that you're studying. I hope that you're reading. I hope that you're praying. I hope that you're ministering to others and serving others and doing all these things that we're called to do. But at the bare minimum, I hope and pray that if you really want to have an intimate relationship with Jesus, that you're actually spending time learning and talking with Him every single day. Because if you're not, you're never going to have that relationship, and you're never going to achieve the full potential of what God has for your life. You're never going to achieve the full direction of what He has for you, or go on the path of what He has laid out for you, and you'll never fully accept it. So we see that knowledge in your head can't overcome truth in your heart. We see that developing intimacy with God takes time. And finally, we see that intimacy with God transforms your life. Intimacy with God transforms your life. So we're going to go back to our story here from the Bible. And we're going to talk about this lady that came to see Jesus. Okay? This lady lived a very difficult life. She had lived a life that no one aspires to live. She had lived a life that I'm sure when she was born and she was thinking as she was growing up, she didn't ever anticipate that's where she would be. And that's what she would be doing. But that's where she was at. She was at a position of, being what she was. I don't have to say it again. You already know what she was. But anyway, when she hears Jesus talk for the first time, and He's talking about forgiving sins, He's talking about following Him, He's talking about if you come to know God and follow me, that you can have a new life, you can be a new person, you can walk forward in that. It changes her life. Just hearing those words change her life. But there's two things that she does that I want to, there's one thing she does, but there's two things from it that I want to bring kind of into the forefront for everybody here tonight. When she comes to Jesus, she kneels at His feet, and her tears are washing the dirt off Jesus' feet. And I'm going to tell you, there was probably a lot of dirt, because I don't know if you know about it, but where Jesus was at, it was pretty much all dirt. All right, sand and dirt, that's all it was. And they didn't have no shoes. I mean, they might have sandals, but they're like me. You're not really covered up here. And I should know, because I don't like wearing shoes, and my feet are always dirty. And sometimes I don't wash them. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so Jesus' feet were dirty. They were very dirty. And she's trying so much that she's washing His feet. And she's using her hair to clean His feet. That's how much emotion she has because of what Jesus said that's transformed her life. But when she goes to anoint His feet, she takes her bottle. Now, she's got a bottle of the most expensive perfume you could have that. It probably took her a year of work to get this bottle. Okay? A year! All right? You can figure that one out on your own. But anyway, This is her only thing she's got. This is all she's got to her name, is this bottle of her perfume. It's all she's got. All right? And she uses this to anoint herself, to make herself look more attractive. That's what she uses it for. All right? So when she meets Jesus, all she's required to do is anoint it with just a little spot. That's all she's required to do. She's not required to do anything more or anything less. That's all the requirement to do when somebody comes into your house. But what does she do? She pours all of it out. She pours out everything she has on Jesus. Every ounce of that she has, she pours out at his feet. Now God calls us to do the same thing. He calls us to pour out all that we have to Him, to give Him everything that we have, to give Him all of our struggles, to give Him all of our sins, to give Him all of us in service back to Him. But how many times do we pour out about 70% and hold that other 30 back? Or how much do we give God and say, hey, I'm going to give you this 60% this week, but next week I've got these things I've got to do, so I'm going to give you about 30 next week. But now the next week I'm going to be back, I'll give you about 50 that week. But I'm not ever going to give you 100. I'm not going to give you all I have. I'm not going to pour everything out to you. And I say to you, you'll never have your life fully transformed by Jesus if you don't. You'll never be fully transformed in your relationship with Jesus unless you're willing to pour out everything you have, every struggle that you have, every sin that you have, every hidden sin that you have that you think no one knows about, but Jesus knows and God knows. And you know. That's all that matters. It don't matter if I know. He knows. And He knows whether you're actually pouring that out to Him or you're trying to hold that back. But what we see is what she did. She's been transformed. She pours it all out and lays it all down for Him. Second thing we see out of that. By pouring it all out, what does that symbolize? She doesn't need it anymore because she's not going to go back to that life. She's not going to go back to doing what she was doing before she knew Jesus. She's going to move in a different direction now that she knows Jesus. Now that she understands what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Now that she understands what it means to have Him as the director of her life and no one else. She doesn't need that anymore. She doesn't need that life anymore. Because when you truly know Jesus and you truly come to know Him, the life you had before doesn't exist anymore. All right? If you walk down the aisle and say, hey, you know what? I believe that Jesus died for me. I believe that He died on the cross, was raised on the third day, and He came back for me to save my life. So that I could spend life in eternity in heaven and not in hell. If you believe that and walk out of that aisle and go right back to living the same way that you lived and doing the same things that you were doing, I'm sorry, you missed the point. All right, now that may be hard teaching for some of us, and I'm sorry if it is, but I'm not really sorry because it's the truth. If you have truly committed your life to being a follower of Jesus, not just a casual third-row fan of Jesus who's going to cheer for Him on Sunday morning and cheer for Him on an occasional Wednesday night, but really ain't going to do anything different when you walk out the door, then I am not sure if you really were transformed by Jesus or not. Because when you let Jesus actually come into your life and actually become the direction of your life, He will transform you into a different direction. He will put you on a path of His choosing, not your own choosing. And when you follow it, that will be the only direction you'll want to go. That'll be the only thing that you want in your life. And that's what happened to her. And see what it says in the last very thing when she's laid it all down. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Jesus hasn't died on the cross yet. Okay? But she believes what He's saying. All right? We know Jesus has already died on the cross. We know that He's already been raised on the third day. We know that everything that we read up to here is the truth. And if you go to the back of the book, I'm just here to tell you, whether you've read it to the night or not, we win in the end. If you get all the way to Revelation, we win. If that's a spoiler to some of you, I'm sorry. But it's the truth. If you were trying to get through there and you were like, oh, I just saw Revelation, I didn't know how it was going to end. Here's how it ends. We win. But we only win if you're willing to pour out everything you have and turn everything over to Him and walk forward in it. And I can assure you tonight, I can guarantee you, If you will do that, if you will take everything you have and turn it over to Him and quit holding on to that one little thing, or quit holding on to those extra things, or quit trying to live with one foot in the world and one foot in the church, or quit trying to appease everybody else, and if you'll actually just focus on what God has for you and spend that time with God, it'll transform your life. It'll change everything you do. It'll change every relationship you have. It'll change how you interact with your friends. It'll change how you interact with your parents. It'll change how you interact at your job. It'll change how you do every single thing you do will change. If you just quit trying to be that person that knows God but doesn't really want God to come in and live in. And you just say, hey, you know what? I know enough about you now that I'm just going to go out here and just live the way that you have called us and commanded us to live. So the question is tonight, you can see it on the bottom of your sheet. I'm not asking you to answer it, but when was the last time you poured yourself out before God? And the other one is, who am I most like in the story? Who are you most like in this story tonight? Are you like Simon the Pharisee? Are you so enamored with your knowledge that you forget who Jesus actually is and that you're to serve Him, He's not to serve you? Are you forgetting that you are the one that's actually supposed to let Him tell you what to do? You're not supposed to tell Him what you're going to do? Or are you like the woman who says, you know what? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know how I'm going to change, but I got to change, and I got to do what you're telling me to do. That's the question as we go. So I'm going to ask the band to come up. We're going to close. We're going to kind of finish up. So they're going to come, I guarantee it. Ashley's going to come, I guarantee it. Look, third time's a charm. It's fine. Lord. But that's the question tonight. The question is have you actually done what it takes? Can you leave here tonight knowing that you have done what it takes to commit yourself, to ask Jesus to come in and actually be the director of your life, to ask Jesus to come in and actually be the person that's going to direct everything that you do and everywhere that you go and everything that you have? And have you actually taken that and actually turned it into an intimate relationship with Him where you're spending time every day studying and learning, not just about Him, but learning what it means to truly accept His love, learning what it means to truly accept His grace in your life, His mercy in your life, learning what it truly means to live a life that's not your own, but a life that He's laid out for you.